Hi everyone, this is Helen, Pastoral Coach in the college. What we're going to be doing in this live is a little bit of talking about meditation, what meditation is, why you might do it, how it can help you. I'm going to preface this video by saying I'm not a meditation expert. I'm just talking a little bit about some things that I used to do and that I currently do that I think are helpful. And I urge you to look up anything that you're interested in, maybe find out about it. But I'll go through a little bit of my understanding and then we'll go through a little meditation. So, from what I understand of meditation, it can be small daily practices or however often you can fit it into your day that can be used to relax, focus, and freshen our minds. And the way I see it is just like when we physically exercise, we stretch and strengthen our muscles. Meditation is a way of stretching and strengthening our mind, being aware of how we think about things, understanding our thought processes, acknowledging our thought processes, and building resilience in terms of understanding certain things that make us feel a certain way and don't make us feel a certain way, and being able to manage that internally a bit better. That's the way I understand it. So what we're going to do is go through a little bit of a guided meditation. You don't have to meditate with any kind of sound or anything, but what I've put in the description box is a little link to some video clips and some sounds to do with forest sounds and nature sounds, because that's kind of to do with what we're going to focus on today for the meditation. And what I would suggest, rather than looking at me reading my notes, it'd be nice to open up another tab and put on the forest images and the forest sounds, and then I can just be in the background. But you can listen in and watch that nicer stuff to kind of go with the meditation. Okay, and if I'm looking around, it's because I've written myself a little script, because like I said, I am not a meditation expert, so I've got some notes to help me. So to begin with, what I think it's good to do, and you can take a bit of time to do this, or if you're watching this not live, then pause it maybe and get yourself sorted. Get comfortable. You could sit down, you could lay down, you could even go outside and be in the fresh air. Make sure that you're warm enough or cool enough. Make sure that you've been to the loo, or if you need a drink, get a drink. And you might be watching this on your phone, and if you are, just try and ignore other notifications or switch them off or silence them. Pop in headphones and just ignore what's around you, and just take this time for yourself. Taking time to look after yourself or better yourself is always time worthwhile. So try and prioritize this time. Allow yourself to have it. If you need to tell someone else to not bother you, do that as well. And just take a little bit of time for you. So in saying that, getting comfortable, just acknowledge how you're breathing as well. I'm not going to say to breathe in for so many seconds, out for so many seconds, but just take some time to take deep breaths if you feel like taking a deep breath. Maybe you want to yawn, maybe you want to stretch, maybe you want to breathe just through your nose, just through your mouth, whatever's comfortable for you. But just acknowledge that your breathing might slow down and calm as we go through the meditation. So today's meditation is going to focus on a concept called forest bathing, which if you haven't heard of it, probably sounds really strange. And you can Google it. I would. It's quite a cool concept. And that's why we've got the forest imagery and the forest sounds to go along with this. And if we weren't in COVID times, this would be a cool thing to actually do outside in a forest or a woodland, but such is life at the moment. So forest bathing is originally a Japanese practice, and it's also known as Shinrin-yoku. And it's based around the premise that by spending time walking or sitting amongst trees, they can help us. And it's believed that they can lower our blood pressure, they can boost our immunity, they can help fight off disease, and they can help you sleep. And it's believed that by connecting with nature in this way, we are able to find benefits for both our mental and physical well-being. And if you do go down a bit of a Google rabbit hole with this, it actually, there's studies that talk about how it's to do with the chemicals or like the nutrients that the trees release. So there's like a scientific background to it, as well as it just being nice to be in the woods. So in our mind, it's a very powerful entity, which is why meditation is good to kind of train and practice using it and to understand control of it. We're going to go on a little walk. So what I describe again will just be a guide, and what you create in your own mind will be your own, but I'll just give you some ideas of the things you could think about and see, but obviously you can look at your own images or videos to go along with this. So begin, again, like we said, just to breathe comfortably in and out. And if you're sitting or laying, we're just going to relax our body. Some common places that we tend to hold tension can be our jaw. So notice, are you clenching your jaw? Do you need to relax your jaw? Your brow. Are you furrowing your brow? Are you frowning? Your shoulders, your arms, your legs, your body. Just let go of tension. Allow yourself to relax and just listen along. So as we're walking, this forest around us, you can imagine it in any season. So in spring, there might be bluebells. In the undergrowth, there might be wild garlic. In the summer, the canopy, or the bit kind of in the sky level, the tops of the trees, could be really, really full to the part where actually walking in the forest could feel really dark, but also feel really cooling. The shade would be really comfortable compared to being out in the really strong rays of the sun. In the autumn time, in a woodland, you see really beautiful colours, red and yellow and gold and brown, and the leaves could be falling around you if there's wind or breeze. And then in the winter, the air is really crisp, and you can see the exact shapes of all the branches. If you were to look up, you could see them really kind of dark and stark against the sky. And there might be snow or frost. You can imagine whatever type of woodland you want to. So on our walk, we're going to follow a bit of a winding path, and woodland paths are normally fairly small and thin, but the path is nice and clear. We don't have to worry about tripping over or anything like that. And we're surrounded by trees completely, all different kinds of species. Now, if you don't know anything about trees, don't worry. What you might be able to imagine or think about is different sizes, different shapes. There might be different textures of bark. Some might be smooth. Some might be really kind of grooved and indented. Some might have vines growing up them. Some might have plants or foliage around their base. Some might be really bare around them. Some trees, like beech trees, their leaves are really acidic. So when those leaves fall to the ground, there's not a lot else that can grow around them. So if you're ever in a beech forest, that's a really cool thing because the trees are huge, massive, really, really tall, but everything around is super, super clear. So you can imagine whatever kind of woodland you want to. Some of the trees could be hundreds of years old, older than most people on the planet. Some of the trees could be really new. Saplings, just little baby trees, just coming up out of the undergrowth, just fighting for light and nutrients and space, just trying to make their own little way in the world. And every woodland and forest has layers of vegetation, and all of these are interlinked and dependent on each other. Some of them share certain things that they need. Might be a little bit of competition, but that woodland is working in its own way, in its own space. Each plant, each animal, each organism has its own kind of part to play. Even under the ground, that you can't see, there are networks of kind of secret, really intricate links of what are called mycelium. And again, if we were in an autumn woodland, we might see mushrooms or fungi, different types, growing on trees or on rotten logs that have fallen. And those networks are existent underground, where the fungi kind of shares or looks for nutrients and water. So it could be kind of nice sometimes to imagine your place in the world, and then all of the interlinked kind of networks and connections that exist around you that are just playing their own little part, going about their own little life alongside yours. In the summer, if we were to be walking in the summer, we could be walking along the path with bare feet, which if you've never done, obviously be careful where you go. There's lots of rubbish and litter and stuff, unfortunately, out sometimes. But if you do get a chance to walk barefoot, it's really, really nice. And in a woodland, the ground could feel soft if there's grass or leaves, and we can really ground to the earth in that way. Whereas in the winter, we could be wrapped up really warm at this time of year. We might have cozy wellies or boots on, really thick socks. And then you might just feel kind of cold breeze on your cheeks or your hands, but everything else would be wrapped up nice and cozy. So as we're walking, we're going to notice certain things that are around us, and something that can be useful to practice when you meditate, or even just in short practices, can be acknowledging your senses. That can be something that can really calm you down. It can really focus you and reduce anxiety. And I'm going to talk through some things you might see in a woodland. If you don't know what these things are, don't worry, just imagine, just kind of listen along. But if we were to look up, say, into the tops of the trees right above us to the sky, we might notice that on the branches there's shapes, kind of looks fluffy sometimes or leafy. And up in those trees there could be something else growing on them, something else dependent on the tree for life. And we call one of those things lichen. And lichen is an interesting little plant, I'll call it. So it's actually made of three things. It's a kind of relationship between yeast, algae, and fungi. And there's all kinds of different types and shapes and colours. And they're the smallest little thing that grows on something else, sometimes on trees or rocks. And if you didn't know what you were looking for, it'd be really easy to miss. But lichen is what's also known as an indicator species in lots of places. And basically what that means is it tells you a little bit about what's around you. So lichen can be an indication that the air is really, really clear. And we're going to imagine that in the woodland that we're in, on all of the branches and all of the tops of the trees, they're really coated in this lichen. And so we can take a really, really deep breath in, knowing that the air is really lovely and clear and clean. As we look around us again, maybe on the bark of the trees, on the trunks, we might see moss. And moss is another really cool thing. I probably sound really sad now, but I think moss is cool. It's what's known as a bryophyte, which means it's a type of plant that relies on water to fall onto it rather than taking it up by roots. It doesn't have a vascular system. It doesn't have flowers or kind of traditional leaves. Moss grows on other things, so you can see it on trees or rocks, on the ground. If you get a chance to walk barefoot, walking barefoot on moss is really nice. It's really kind of soft and cushiony. There's even some mosses that can completely dry up if they don't get the water falling on them, and they can almost look dead, like dried leaves. But then as soon as water falls on them, they rejuvenate, which is quite a cool thing. And it was thought that thousands, probably even millions of years ago, what we would have known as trees were actually types of moss. And people believe that peat bogs, or have studied, maybe not believe, maybe they know, I don't know, but peat bogs were once these moss trees all kind of rotted down under the ground. So again, kind of referring to those links and connections through time, perhaps. In amongst the trees and the branches, we might notice animals or birds. Again, just going about their day, going about their own kind of business, whatever they're doing. The birds might be chirping or singing, or you hear their wings flap if we startle them and they move away. Some birds are particularly curious, like a robin. If you ever notice a robin in a woodland, they'll often follow you. You kind of unturn or overturn stones or logs, and that provides food for them. People call them a gardener's friend. They might be nesting if it's getting into the colder months, or if they're about to lay eggs, collecting up branches and grasses and soft and hard structures to create their nests to be safe in. They might just be exploring, looking around, feeding, or they could be defending. they might not want us there, and they might be telling us to get lost. But all of these things are around us in the woodland, as well as the trees and the plants, just kind of living their natural lives. One of the nicest sounds, I think, in nature, if you were to sit in a woodland or walk through a woodland, is the sound of leaves and branches and being rustled by wind. And it's really kind of, unless the wind's really howling, it's not really a constant sound, but something that ebbs and flows like waves. Really, really satisfying. And so what we're going to do now, as we're walking through the woods, we've noticed a few things around us. We're going to settle into a clearing. And we're going to sit on the ground. There's nothing wet or cold. It's just nice and comfortable. We're going to lean against a tree for support. We can feel the sun on our face, really pleasant and warming. We're going to look up and see the light through the trees. And there's even studies that have shown that being outside is good for us because of vitamin D and fresh air. But actually there's bacterium in soil, which again sounds really strange, but there's bacterium in soil that's actually proven to raise serotonin levels, which is something in your brain that makes you feel happy, makes you feel positive. So gardening or playing outside or exploring or walking or sitting outside is beneficial in that sense. So we're going to sit for a bit on the ground, feel the solid earth beneath us, grounding us, and just listen to some of those sounds in the woodland that we might hear. Take some deep breaths, enjoy the fresh air, and just be still. And if you've got one of those forest playlists on, it's nice to just take a bit of time to listen to that and just notice those sounds and listen into those things, what's going on in those woodlands. Or like I said at the start, if it's safe for you and you're able to, and you've got access to being able to go to a woodland, again, safely, then that's something really nice to do. Go for a walk, go and sit outside, whatever way that you can do that is a really nice thing to do, even in the winter. And even if it's not in a woodland, it's really nice to make sure that you take time outside at this time of year, whether it's at the coast or just walking on the street around the block. Just getting some fresh air and spending some time outside can be really, really beneficial. So hopefully you can take some time in the future to explore this concept a bit further. This has been a little whistle-stop forest tour, but I hope it's been moderately interesting. And it's just been a way for you to understand that you can focus your mind onto something you choose to, something positive, something calming. And that's something that you can practice daily to then be able to implement when maybe something's a bit more stressful or a bit more worrying or just there's a bit more pressure. You can learn to kind of enable your brain to think about and focus on the things that you want to, positive things, helpful things. And to me, that's what meditation's about. So to end our meditation, we're going to revive ourselves a little bit. So if you're laying or sitting, take some time to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, circle your wrists and your ankles. Maybe you want to take a big full body stretch. Maybe you want to, stretch your arms out, your legs out, stretch your neck a little bit, maybe if that feels comfortable. Just gentle movements to come back to your present space and just to kind of reacquaint yourself with movement after taking some stillness. Forest bathing is what we called it. So have a look into it if you're interested. This is just a very short, little brief introduction, and I hope that you can take some time for meditation or even just relaxation in any way that you prefer over the Christmas holidays. Have a great one. Be safe. We'll see you back in college in January. Bye, guys.